You like scrunching your face like that? That way it looks good
Yeah.
when the
Man, how are
camera
you
actually comes
doing?
on. Is
How,
that
I
kind
haven't
of like
seen you
the
in.
blah, 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 that you do with your voice?
Yeah, you said you were gonna post that, so I'm glad you didn't do that.
No, I thought about it though. I
That's what
did. So I
actors
was.
do to get their voices ready for the camera.
There's still time.
No,
I
it's
could still
okay.
post it. Are you
No, it's
sure?
okay. It's okay.
I totally
we
could.
got we got a banger of a book today, man. It's a banger.
So today we are going to be talking about question behind the question. Where's your copy? Do you have your copy?
It's in the trash.
You're
No, I'm just
no,
kidding.
you don't need to say
It's
that at the
it's
very
it
beginning.
it's inside. It's inside. Just wait to the
Is
reasons
yours
why. No, it's inside.
is yours uh I said paper copy or hard copy? Is paper copy soft copy or hard
Yeah,
copy?
yeah. Paperback. It's a
Paperback.
hardback. It's a hardback.
I bought it at this is one of those books that I bought at the thrift store for $1. So that way I have a copy of it, so that way I can read it with you. But it has some interesting thoughts, so let's talk about it.
All right, let's go.
So
Yeah.
first, I want to
So
know, like, we haven't
zip,
talked in a couple weeks.
zip. No, we haven't. We did the pod on who moved my cheese, which is the wrong question to ask. According to this author, you're not
Oh, I didn't
supposed
even
to
think about
ask
that.
who questions. So
Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
we did who moved my cheese last week or 2 weeks ago, and then last week I was in Slovenia for Soren's swim camp. And then we will start work tomorrow, man. Like this is the last day of my summer, talking to you, smoking a stogie, talking about a book. Life is good.
So, I mean, vacation and summer and all that is great. And we have both been incredibly busy this summer, but there is something pleasant about the routine of going to work, getting up in the morning, coming home at night. It helps me with like workout routines. It helps me with, mental fatigue. Like, and granted, sometimes my schedule does get off during the regular school year, but during the summer, it's just almost like it's all or nothing. So I'll have 2 days of no work, and then I'll have somebody who's in the hospital, and I'm at the hospital from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m., every day for a week. It's like, oh, I'm going. And then it's like nothing for another day or two. And then I get another job. So it's just crazy how it all works.
Dude, summertime, we've been on literally a vacation for 2 months. Like being a teacher is the best job in the world because like we got off of
Yeah.
school on June the 10th, I think, and it's August 9th today. So we go back to work on August 10th tomorrow. But out of the 8.5 weeks that we were on summer break, we were gone for 5 of those weeks. So like we've
Yeah.
been traveling, and so I agree with you. The routines, the schedules are all out of whack. And once you go back to school and you start with all like Soren's practices, you know, all the routines and the schedule, there is security in that. And truthfully, I love that
Hmm.
too. I can't wait to go back. For those are part of the reasons why I want to go back. But you're right. Like having a schedule is much better than lounging on the couch all day, which I don't do. But if people do that, then it's better to have a schedule, in my opinion.
It's easier to read too. Like, I've noticed I've had more time to read, but less incentive to read. Which,
Oh
I mean,
yeah,
that's
that's
the
right.
reason why we started this podcast at all. But I'll have a morning off from, my first job isn't till 1:30 in the afternoon at a doctor's appointment. And I'll be like, oh, I'll sit outside and I'll play Clash of Clans for 4 hours.
Yeah.
I
And then you
mean,
feel terrible after that. You know what I mean? Like
yes,
you just
did
feel like
nothing productive.
groggy and your mind is numb, kinda. I wrote an article. I haven't put it out yet, but it's on the topic of brain rot and how when you're scrolling, you're not thinking, and how because of that, social media and just the absent mindedness of scrolling has caused us to lose the skill of thinking deeply. And so
Yeah.
I wrote about that. I wrote it like back in June, but I just haven't put it out yet for whatever reason. But anyway, I believe brain rot is real. Like if you spend your time scrolling on your phone, like your brain is going to eventually turn to mush. I don't know, maybe that's like a modern day sickness or problem that we're going to have as modern day people is the fact that we're addicted to our phones. But I don't know.
I can see that. You would be proud of me though. So I have been hearing more and more people who write on Substack.
Hmm.
And I think part of it too is I've been listening to the Art of Manliness podcast, and almost everybody that he interviews like, I have a Substack, I have a Substack, I have a Substack. And so I went back through, I have one article on my Substack, and I'm thinking about writing more. I've had thoughts, and again, it comes back to motivation. So I've had thoughts that I've wanted to put in video form
Hmm.
so that we could put them out in shorts. And we've talked about that, sitting down, getting a camera in front of you, talking about XYZ. But my issue is it's not organized enough. And so I'm going to have to sit down and organize it. And my thinking is, well, if I'm going to sit down and organize it, I might as well just write it up, post it as an article. And then if I want to, after that, I can make a video on it, just kind of summarizes the article that I just wrote, hitting the key main points. But you've been on me for the last, we've been doing this now for 9 months. You've been on me for the
Seven, eight
last
months. Yeah.
well, so December, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, 8. So we're in the ninth
Yeah.
month right now. So we've been
Right.
doing it 8 months. And the whole time you've been like, you need to write, you need to write. And I know that I do. So this may be the motivation that I need, which that's what it's all about. Like, it comes back to sitting around the house from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. is because you don't have the motivation, which he actually talks a little bit about that in Question Behind the
Mm-hmm.
Question, procrastination. But
Yeah.
motivation and how can I institute ways for me to do the right things? Like, the right thing I know is to read good books and then to think about those books and not sit on Instagram all day, but to think about them, contemplate them, and how am I going to be motivated to do so? Then if I know that I'm going to have to get on this call and talk to my brother about this book and these concepts, so I'm motivated to think about it. Like, I would never have written all of this down. I read the book twice and I wrote all this down last night going through it a third time. I would not have been motivated to write any of that down if we weren't talking today. So I
Right.
need to institute motivational actions, things that I can do to push me to do the right thing, because we all have a tendency to procrastination, laziness, blame, all of that. So I'm excited.
Oh, it's good.
What are
And
you
you should do
smoking
that.
today?
I am smoking. There's no label on this one, and it's kind of, as you can see, it's not really well crafted. I mean, I guess it's well crafted enough, but this is a hand rolled cigar from the island of La Palma, which is the most active volcano in the Canary Islands. So all the Canary Islands are made from volcanoes. We visit Tenerife twice. We've been visiting Tenerife twice a year for the last 3 years, and Tenerife has the third largest volcano in the world called Mount Teide, and is also the highest peak of Spain. Um, but La Palma just erupted again in 2021. So it erupted 5 years ago. And this is a cigar from the island, which is about 40, 50 miles off the coast of Tenerife. And there are 5 islands in the Canary Islands, which is due west of Africa, West Africa, Morocco. So it's about 120 miles from Morocco. So this is a hand rolled cigar. It's yeah, I would like to say it's a lot like a Cuban in how it smokes. It's quite spicy, but it's just knowing that it's hand rolled. It didn't come from a factory. It didn't have a label on the cigar. I just take great satisfaction in knowing that I'm smoking a cigar that somebody on a small island put together themselves by hand. And it's not the prettiest cigar, but it has a great draw, a great smoke, good flavors, and thoroughly enjoying it. You said you have
Do
something
they,
special for me. What are
I
you smoking?
do. Do they grow the tobacco on the Canary Islands, or do you know if they grow it in like maybe Africa and bring it over? Did they say where,
Yeah,
like, its country of origin?
that's a great question. I don't know. All I know about this cigar is it's a short filled cigar, so it's not
Okay.
long. I guess long leaf. I guess or it's short leaf.
Not long filled. Yeah.
Long-filled, right? So that's all I know about this one, and that it was made on La Palma. That's all I know about this
Okay,
particular cigar.
interesting. I would like to try it sometime. Well, I mean,
I have two
I,
left. You're coming in next year, right? So, but I'm
you gotta
going back
save
to
them.
Tenerife over Christmas, so I'll dig up
There we
some
go.
more then.
We're still trying to decide what we're gonna do over Christmas. Um, we're gonna take a cruise, but then Elsa, my dog, is 12. She's gonna be 13 next year, so it's like we have to board her because she's not very friendly to people. So it's like we
Right.
probably won't do the cruise. We want to keep her with us. So anyway, today I'm smoking this right here.
A JC Newman quorum. Let's go. The people need to
What?
know why that's so funny.
I saw it on sale and I was like, it was a 5 pack. I was like,
Okay.
I'm gonna get those
How do you
for
like it?
Brent.
Yeah. How do you like it?
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Like it's not the most fantastic cigar I've ever had in my life. And I've had a quorum before. So funny story, I did a job. This has been years ago with two other guys named Brian and a guy named Kirk. And this is before I met Megan too, actually. And one evening while we're on the job, we were all volunteering for this project. We decided that we were going to go hang out and by the bus stop and just smoke cigars. My buddy Kirk smoked cigarettes. My buddy Brian smoked cigars. My other buddy Brian smoked cigars. So we're just sitting there, just hanging out by the bus stop, smoking cigars. Yeah,
That's three Brians.
yeah, yeah.
Hey, what do you
So
call
it's
what do you
funny.
call three Brians by a bus stop?
You got me.
Brian. All right, go ahead. Sorry, finish your story. That's the dumbest joke.
So it's so funny because Kirk actually had a name badge, and above his name Kirk, we wrote in not Brian above his name tag.
I thought you were gonna say Picard or something, Kirk Picard or something like some Star Trek stuff.
Oh, that's funny. I didn't even put two and two together. Look at you being all
Hey,
nerdy.
you're influenced. Hey, what's up with no Star Trek shirt today?
Oh, I know, right? Megan said the same thing this morning. She got out some shirts and she was like, "Are you wearing that one? But that one's not like unique in any
That's not a
way." I'm
it's not a
like, "Yeah, I know."
podcasting shirt.
I'm feeling rather blah this morning, and so I wanted to wear just a blah normal shirt,
Happens every
just
day
because
to the best of
it
us.
reflects my personality. So anyway, we stayed up till 3 in the morning smoking cigars, and I ran out of cigars that I had brought. So we went to a little, I don't know, convenience store down the street, and some of the only cigars they had were JC Newman Quorum, and they were not humidified. They were just sitting out in this case. And I got it, and it was literally one of the worst cigars I'd ever smoked in
Yeah.
my life. But it was because it wasn't humidified, it wasn't taken care of, it was dried out, it was crackling. And so I got this one not expecting the best, but this one's been well humidified. It actually came in like a humi pack,
Yeah.
the 5 cigar humi pack. And so it's well humidified. And it's nice. Like I might get more of these just because it actually tastes decent, especially for the price that I get. But this is a
Right.
shade, a quorum shade. So it's not super heavy, not super dark, but super nice. I'm excited. I'm excited to finish it.
Thanks for doing that in honor of me. I smoked JC Newman in like the first 5 episodes because I didn't have any other cigars in my humidor.
Are
Yep.
you about out? Because you said you got like 36 cigars and you smoked 3 times a
Y-
week. So
No, I only did that one week. I still got
okay.
probably 20 cigars from Tenerife left.
Oh,
And I
nice.
have the
So plenty.
Perdomo 20th anniversary that we're going to smoke in 2 episodes.
Right. This is
And
episode 18, right?
18, right? And I have the Perdomo 30th anniversary. So that's sitting in my
Nice.
humidor, getting nice and humidified. And I can't wait to smoke
Perky.
those, man. Yeah.
I'm going to a cigar shop today, I think, actually. So I'll have to look for Perdomo 20th and pick it up. That way we can smoke it together at the same time. But let's talk about QBQ.
Perfect. Yeah.
So my initial thoughts, and I'm curious, I think this is going to create some discussion, is the QBQ is almost the exact opposite book of Let Them Theory. And let me explain why. So Let
Hmm.
them theory, whenever someone says let them, oftentimes it's because they don't want to take responsibility for why a specific relationship or job or business or life is not working out. So it's my coworker is crap. They don't do anything, and I'm always having to clean up after them. You know what? I'm just going to let them be themselves, and I'm just going to ignore them, and I'm going to let them. Or with a husband or wife, like my husband or my wife never pays attention to me. So you know what? I'm just going to let them, which is the fallacy of the let them theory because it doesn't instruct you on it's great in very surfacey issues, but if you're looking at real world problems, let them theory does a very bad job of saying, look, sometimes you have to get down in the weeds and you have to dig a little bit. You can't just say, oh, this weed is hard to pull. You know what? I'm going to let it be there. And then the weed ends up eating all your flowers, right? So, like, sometimes you can't just let them. Sometimes you have to take personal responsibility for that situation and you have to actually do something about it. Now, I do have a complaint about this, which we'll get into, but what do you think about the idea that QBQ is almost from a personal responsibility aspect, the opposite of let them? Have you ever thought about that? Like, did you think about
That
that
is
concept?
that is a great point. I never really thought about that because he does talk about personal responsibility, but in my opinion, he talks about personal responsibility way too late in this book. So, my first initial reaction to this book, I was quite put off by his belly aching and his whining about everybody else having a victim's mentality. So,
Yeah.
I feel like
It's,
he
it's
was
true.
just belly aching from the beginning, but I also felt like he was trying to convince us that he has this breakthrough idea that can revolutionize corporate leadership, and it's called the question behind the question. And instead of asking why and who questions, you should ask what and how questions. And that's the way
Uh-huh.
that you can lead. And I was like, dude, I don't buy it. I was quite annoyed by most of the book until I got to chapter 21 when he talks about change starts with me. But what was the peak of my annoyance was the story of the pilot and his daughter. So he
Oh,
gave
yeah.
an illustration about this pilot and his daughter. They're, 20,000 feet up in the air and they have engine failure. And so the pilot, the father, looks at the daughter and says something like, stay calm, everything's going to be okay. And what essentially he did, the engine shut off, so he nosedived to pick up engine speed. Well, the author tried to spin that uh, the pilot, instead of asking why is this happening to me, instead he applied the question behind the question attitude and said, what can I do to fix the situation? So I will nosedive so my engine turns back on. So therefore, because he asked a question behind the question, him and his daughter did not fall to their death in the Michigan Lake or the Lake of Michigan. Therefore, you should apply the question behind the question. And I was
Yeah.
just so turned off because at the end of that chapter, he's like, "Life is a lot like this plane falling out of the sky." And I'm like, "Dude, that's like, come on now!" Like, anyway, so I thought he was reaching the whole time about accusing everybody of being a victim, having a victim mentality, and so I was quite put off by that. But the thoughts on personal accountability was good. So I don't know what your thoughts about are on that, but that's what I
So
initially gained from the first part of the book.
I understand why you're coming from that perspective, and I think I can explain the reason behind it. But one thing that he doesn't talk about in this book is systems and
Hmm.
how there are systems that either are in place or need to be put in place. And he represented this again and again and again and called it QBQ responsibility without recognizing the system that was behind the individual who was making the action. So, for example, the server at the Rock Bottom Cafe at the very beginning of the book, who, whenever he ordered Diet Coke, oh, sir, sorry, we don't have Diet Coke. We only serve Pepsi products here. Oh, okay, great. I'll just take a water, rolls, and a salad. Okay, brought that out, water, blah. And then 5 minutes later, the long arm of QBQ reached over my shoulder and set down in front of me a nice frosty on the outside, cold on the inside Diet Coke. And when I asked this young man, where did you get it from? He said, oh, sir, I just walked across the street, or it was just across the street at the store, and it was only $1. Oh, that young man was more than willing to not wallow in the fact that they did not have Diet Coke for me, but instead he took it upon himself to ask, how can I serve this customer? I'm going to go across the street and get him a Diet Coke that's cold and frosty and refreshing. What he failed to recognize is it probably wasn't that young man at all. In fact, the restaurant owner probably had established a system that said, if we have a customer who comes in here, if they want a product that we don't have, and if you offer them an alternative product and they say, you know what, I don't like the alternative product, I'll just have water. Well, then as a restaurant, we are going to, and I know this is a fact because the young man didn't go get it himself. He told his manager to go get it. So the manager knew about the system already. So he's describing good systems that are in place rather than a young man who took the initiative to ask the right questions and see how he could serve somebody in the best manner possible. There were other stories that illustrated this as well. But my problem with the book is, yes, everybody needs to take personal responsibility. But it's easier to take personal responsibility whenever you're taking responsibility within a system that is sure and within a system that is sound. And if you are an individual who is having issues with the systems at your work, so maybe you show up on time, you're supposed to be there at 8 a.m. every morning, but Joe Blow shows up at 8:30 every morning, and your first responsibility is to do something difficult at work. To check the voicemail for all the nasty comments that were left and complaints that were left last night about your business. And so basically when you get there at 8 a.m., it's your responsibility to check these voicemails and write all these names down to start calling the people back about how you can help them. Well, Joe Blow misses all of that. So he misses the hardest part of the work because he shows up late. And then you go to your manager and you're like, hey, like Joe Blow isn't showing up at 8 o'clock. Like, can we do something about this? And the response is, QBQ, son. You ask the question behind the question. How can I do a better job at this? Stop saying who is showing up late to work, okay? It's like, okay. I guess I'll just do it, whether he's there or not. So it's a problem with the system. It's not a problem with me not being willing to take personal accountability. It's about fairness. And it's about the fact that this guy is not having to do enough work and I'm being shouldered with his workload, even though whenever I was hired, you told me that I wouldn't have to be. So I think the reason why this book is written the way that it is, because I did a little research on the book. This guy started out as a business consultant / speaker, motivator, like motivational speaker at the age of 26. And he did that for several years. And that was his mode of income. He did business training, motivational speaking, all of that. I think that basically he took the concepts of his speech, like what he was telling to people, and tried to put it in book format. But what we're missing is all of his ability to speak to a crowd, because I imagine, and I couldn't find anything immediately. I didn't look super hard, just to be honest, but couldn't find anything of him speaking. It wasn't exactly motivated to, but I should have asked how. How can I solve this question so that way I can find this guy speaking? But I think that we're missing all of his little quips. I think we're missing all of his little jokes. I think we're missing all the connectors. He's trying to put what he is speaking about in person in black and white. But when you're a good motivational speaker, when you're a good crowd pleaser, you're going to adjust your message to the crowd that you're speaking to. And so if they laugh at this joke, well, then maybe I'm going to emphasize this a little more than that. And so just a generic, QBQ message to everybody, I don't necessarily think comes off as well, because he's used to presenting this message from a stage. He's not necessarily used to presenting this message from a book. I think if we saw him in person, I think this message would be a lot more clear. I think he would be able to explain himself more. And he even talked about towards the end of the book, he said he got in the elevator after one of his training sessions, and the lady was like, "So you're telling me I just need to do the work of everybody else on my team?" He was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, like, where did that come from?" Well, I'm sorry. When I read the book, that's essentially the same feeling that I got. It's like, okay, I'm going to be the one responsible. And if everybody else around me is irresponsible, too bad, so sad. How can I meet the goals of the team, even though everybody around me is being irresponsible? So, my response to that is, look, if you're having issues with the systems at work or where you are, look for a new system or look for a new job and find somewhere that has systems in place that can allow you as a responsible, productive individual to thrive within those systems. What do you think about that?
To be a good speaker, you got to be a good storyteller. Like that's the essence of speaking, I think, is being a great storyteller. My mind automatically goes to motivational speakers like Tony Robbins, who is also a great author. John Gordon, also a motivational speaker. He speaks to teams a lot, but he's a great storyteller. This book I felt was so choppy because it's like a 90-page book and it has like 90 chapters in it. Like every
Right.
page was a chapter and it was just so choppy. I really felt that he wrote this book as a get rich quick scheme where, hey, maybe you can write a book and publish a book and hey, let's make a couple of mil on the side or a couple of 100,000 on the side. So I just thought it was very watered down. In chapter 37, which was towards the end of the book, he talks about the name of the chapter was We Buy Too Many Books. We go to too many seminars. We listen to too many podcasts. And I wrote down, I was like, yeah, this is one of those books that we buy too much of. And then the very last chapter, he talks about the motor of learning, how in order to learn, you got to do. And I agree with that. Like, you got to put kinetic action into the beliefs that you have. And the very last thing that he says, he's like, so now that you finish this book, read again. And I put in parentheses, I am not reading this book again. So I just think that I just felt like it was a very delusional approach to get his message across. And it was, so for instance, like he mandated that you do not ask why questions. So you already alluded to the
Right.
question, like somebody comes in late and he doesn't want you to ask, why are you late? So he would rather say, what can I do to help you get to work on time?
Right.
Okay, now we're all
Yeah.
like 40 years old, 30 years old. I can understand maybe if he's like a teenager, but man, if somebody's coming in late, ask a why question. Why are you late? Well, my car had a flat. Oh, okay. Well, that's why you're late. Instead of
Right.
like trying to, um, I don't know. I wrote down also in my book that he was just trying to be politically correct and not calling things out for what they are. Like instead of calling somebody out for not doing your job, you need to ask a QBQ so that you don't hurt their feelings so that you're tied to their mistake. So, why are you late? I should ask, how can I help you get to work on time? Which sometimes I guess that helps. And I guess sometimes that is good leadership, but there needs to be a level of accountability. And I think when we don't ask those why questions, or what was the other question you're not supposed to ask the who questions, I think we
Mm-hmm.
take out a form of the personal responsibility on our own part. Yeah, I agree with we should take responsibility for our own life, but when it comes to other people, I don't think applying the question on the question is appropriate in some situations. So that's just my initial throwback on you and my annoyance with reading this book. I just felt like it was a a concept he's trying to push upon the reader that's groundbreaking and relevant when I just didn't see it as that.
So one thing I did appreciate after doing a little research on this book is evidently he was a motivational speaker, business trainer, whatever you call it. But and this was a point that was made as I was doing my research is he self-published this book. I think basically he was
Hmm.
going around talking to people and people were like, "Hey, do you have a book? Like this is you're a great speaker. This is a great concept. Why don't you create a book that can help people and that I can give to my cousin who's a lazy butt, and I can give it so that way he can have personal responsibility. And he's like,
Mhm.
oh, okay. So he kind of threw this together without necessarily feedback from publishing houses. And evidently, he sold 250,000 copies before a
Hmm.
publisher would even look at it. And I think the reason why publishers wouldn't look at it is because it was so choppy. Like it has a good solid principle, but as far as like the overall readability of it, it's just really difficult. So does that change your perspective at all, knowing that he was a self-motivator, he didn't procrastinate, he put the book together, was able to sell 250,000 copies before he even got a publisher, and that's probably the reason why it's written the way that it is?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to knock the guy. I know I've been. This is probably the first book that we've read together that I've been super negative on. But I am a huge proponent of the personal accountability that he's trying to present in this book. So, for instance, he talked about how change starts with me and personal accountability starts with me. And it's not about changing others. So, he didn't get to that point till chapter 21. And I felt that he should have started with personal accountability.
Right.
And if he started with that personal accountability, then maybe I could have bought into what he was trying to say. But yeah, I mean, writing a book is hard. It's difficult to write a
Yeah.
book, and I haven't done it, and I would like to, and I have ideas to do something like that. But um, yeah, it doesn't change that I didn't care for it in, but I do think that with every book you read, there is an opportunity to glean something from it. So Montaigne talks about how books are written and they're written because of the thoughts that people have, like the opinions that people have. Our job as readers of those books are to take their opinions and to form our own thoughts and opinions based upon what they write. And whether you agree with the book or you don't agree with the book, the diversity of reading literature that you don't agree with, or maybe even literature that is bad, still trying to find that one thing that you can apply is still needed. And I think that that one thing that you can apply from this book is that concept of personal accountability. And asking quality questions is one of them. Taking responsibility. There's a book I think out there called the No Complaining Rule, and making sure that we're not complaining and being a good coworker, helping others. I think those are all things that he tried to communicate. So yeah, I still kind of stand by what I said about this book not being applicable. Um, so I think that's my response to you.
Yeah. So he ended off with two stories, and both of the stories were a little ridiculous. He was trying to prove a point, but the first story was about Bonita, the flight attendant. Evidently, they had a super hard time getting on this airplane. The airplane was overbooked. Everybody brought extra luggage. Everybody was trying to stuff their luggage in the overhead bins. People were upset. They went out on the tarmac. They waited for an hour. And so Bonita evidently took it upon herself to hand out these headphones for free rather than charging people $5. And when he asked her, Bonita, I just really like your attitude, she looked at me and she said, well, don't give me a drug test.
Dude, that story was, I forgot about that story. Don't drug
I
test
read
me.
that story and I was like, number one, Bonita did not decide to give out headphones for free to the entire plane. Let's be clear about
That's
that.
standard
Whoever the
procedure.
yeah, airplane company says if we're on the tarmac for an hour, this is a way to keep our customers calm as we give them a product for free, which costs us 10 cents each, and this will keep them from complaining. So again, it's not personal responsibility on Bonita's part. It is system set up on the airline's part, number one. And number two, she looked at him and she said, don't give me a drug test. And then he said something like, well, I know I didn't have to give her a drug test because she was high on life.
Oh man.
I was like, bruh, do you not see that she's literally telling you that she's high?
Yeah. I'm from Colorado. I was
I
smoking the
mean, granted,
reefer back in the
maybe
lavatory.
maybe she wasn't, but the way that he put it, I was like, yeah, bro, like she was on something, and that's the reason she was so happy. let's just be honest. At least the way you told the story, right?
Well, I like the Home Depot story when
Mm-hmm.
there was a cashier who came in or who was checking people out. And so this young, strapping, nice-looking guy came in all in a rush and he was demanding that she hurry up because it's taking too long. And he bought an item for $2.49, but he only had $100 bill. Now, standard procedure says that because she only has $40 in the cash register, because she just opened up her cash register, she has to send that $100 up to management to get it approved so they can get changed to give the guy his money back. So instead, she reached into her purse, grabbed out $2.49, and paid for the guy's item. Well, the moral of the story is he came back 2 days later with his dad, and I thought they were going to offer her a job when I was reading this.
Yeah.
Instead, they're going to buy all of their material from the Home Depot because she did not ask, why is this happening to me? But instead asked, how can I make this situation better? So I will therefore pay this for this item for $2.49. And then at the end, the guy's like, so if you paid for $2.49, how much higher would you have gone? But I think that's a legitimate question. Like he used the example that okay, it's just $2.49. I get that because she's thinking of the situation, trying to make the situation better. But did she really do that for the organization? Did she really like what was her motive
Correct.
in paying for the guy's $2.49? Let me tell you what I think her motive was. The guy was an a-hole and was because he very distinctly said that this guy was being very pushy and being very demanding. She probably made that decision because the guy was annoying and she wanted to get him out of the line to serve the next
Right.
customers. It wasn't because like she was asking a QBQ. So I know like I'm really negative. I need to change my perspective and ask a better question. Like, how can I get more out of this book as opposed to blaming him about why he wrote this book? Um, but those are the type of stories that, but then those stories would just end right there, and then nothing would be
Yeah.
applied to those stories. So, um, you also said a couple episodes ago when you read really, really good literature, for instance, the books by Robert Greene, like even the David Goggins book was well written. It had great stories in it. It flowed. I think it
Right.
just makes you appreciate a little bit more about what is good literature. And when you come across a book like this, because I read this book maybe 5, 6 years ago, I think I enjoyed it 5 or 6 years ago. But then, like, you grow and you read better literature, you read better books, and then you kind of see what is quality can apply and what is disingenuous writing. And I felt like he was quite disingenuous with writing this book.
Would you maybe give this book to somebody though who's having problems with showing up to work, or maybe who comes home? I mean, I wouldn't say comes home because
Right.
that insinuates our wife or our child, but
Right.
maybe it's a friend that you interact with from time to time, and they're like, "Well, the management doesn't do this, and management doesn't do that, and the Joe Blow doesn't do this, and I have to do all his work, and blah blah." And like they can't stop complaining, and you see in your mind, you're like, "Dude, just take personal responsibility." Like, so I wrote down an example that if I was a salesperson and I had made $1 million sale. And in order for that sale to go through, a single page paper has to be filled out and submitted to the secretary of our division or whatever. And John over here is always procrastinating and he's never filling out that one page paper so that I can get my commission off of that $1 million sale. Let's say that it's 1%. Well, I'm going to make $10,000 off of this sale, but I got to wait on John over here. And he's like, oh man, like 23 of you guys made sales this, and I can't fill everybody's out at the same time. Like, come on, guys, you can't do this to me. So you know what I'm going to do? Rather than sit here and say, well, John over here, how can I, best approach this? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take the freaking piece of paper. It's going to take me 30 seconds. I'm going to fill it out, and I'm going to submit it to Susan, the secretary, because I'm not going to allow my success to be limited by somebody who's not willing to put in the work. So from that perspective, I think we need to look at each situation and no, we don't need to do other people's work. But yes, we do need to do other people's work if it's going to help us perform better. Now, if there's a systems problem, and that's the reason why I think Dave Ramsey loved this, because this is a good book if you're a manager and you want to stop hearing people complain about the systems that you put in place. And that could be good, that could be bad. So, for instance, if the systems favor men over women, well, then that's an issue. If it favors younger people versus older people, well, then that's an issue. We need to adjust the system so that everybody can work within the system, or vice versa. If it favors older people over younger people, if it's, you must quote the first two lines of this World War II movie every time you enter work, and young people are like, how does this relate to my life in any way? And the older people are like, yes, bless God, we're going to say the Declaration of Independence every time. We're going to say the Pledge of Allegiance every time we come into work. And if you're young people, stop complaining about it. Well, that's a system. And although I'm a massive supporter of saying the Pledge of Allegiance, the reality is if somebody doesn't want to say it, it doesn't really matter to their job if they don't want to say it. So let's stop putting systems in place that are frustrating people, and instead let's put systems in place that are going to help people. And when Dave Ramsey recommended this book, he was known as a hard butt, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that he had people who were pushing back on his systems and saying, hey, let's not do it this way. Let's try this. And he's saying, no, this is the system. This is the way we're going to do it. I'm the boss. You do what I say. This is a way to hit people over the head who are questioning the systems and pushing that back on them and saying, you know what you should be doing instead? You should say, how can I work within the system? How can I best serve my boss and make them the most money? From that perspective, I have an issue with this book, because from that perspective, it's all about me being taken advantage of as the employee and me not asking the boss not taking the real questions of this and this and this are either inappropriate or not effective or whatever the reason may be. And rather than me, the boss, taking responsibility, I'm going to push that back on the employees and say, you need to stop asking me why and who, and you need to ask how you can work within my system, because this is my business and I make the rules. So from that perspective, I have a problem with this book. That being said, like, personal responsibility is something that I think everybody can implement. And even from that perspective, if I'm at a job where I have an a-hole of a boss, or I have somebody who's implementing their systems, and I cannot be successful in that system, well, then I need to find another system within which I can work. And if that means me finding another job, great. Something else I have a problem with, though, is people who are in a system, they complain about that system, but they never leave the system. So that's people who have been in their jobs for 10 years, and they're complaining about not getting a pay raise this year, and how they're worth so much more money and how much they do for the company, and they're just never appreciated. Well, from that perspective, I always look at a complainer like that and I'm like, find another job. Like, if you're so valuable as a floor sweeper, I'm sure there's a company out there that if you just have the cleanest floors in the entire state, they will hire you for more money than you're making where you are to have the shiniest floors in the state. I guarantee you, if you're really worth that, go find that other job and work within their system. You know what's true most of the time, though, is they're just complaining because they want more money. The reality is the company that they are at is paying them a decent wage, is treating them pretty fairly. They just want more. And the only way for them to get more is not to ask how I can benefit the company, but it's, I'm going to ask why and who, and I'm going to blame everybody else because I don't feel like I am getting paid what I deserve. Sure. I think that there's a balance. We can approach HR, we can approach our management, we can approach our bosses about getting raises, about being appreciated, about getting more time off, less time, whatever. We can do that, but at the same time, there's a responsibility on the business to appreciate their employees. But there's also a responsibility of the employees to not be procrastinators and complainers. So I think that this presents it as a very hard line, when in reality, it's a lot like Let Them, where not every situation is just, oh, I'm going to let them. I'm going to let them do whatever they want to me. I'm going to let them
I love
whatever.
it
I'm
how
just
you
going
do
to take
that.
it easy. You're,
I love that voice.
but
That voice is good.
there, I'm going to let them. There are nuances to every single thing that we do in life. But if the one thing that we learn from this book is to take personal responsibility, then great. If the one thing that management and bosses and business owners take from this is I'm going to throw this at my employees to get them to shut up about the systems that I have in place, well, then that's an issue, right? So there's a balance on either side. And I see both sides of the problem.
No, that's a really good point. The fact that you got to have systems in place. And, I tried to legitimately, this is legitimate. I tried to apply this to like me being a dad. So let's say Soren's having a problem listening to me and he's not listening. He's not doing what I ask him to say. So instead of being like, man, Soren never listens to me, I'm going to ask a question like, what can I change in my communication to
That's
him?
good.
How
That's
can I
good.
relate better to him? Or, man, my wife is always complaining about me not picking up my underwear off the floor and put it down the laundry chute. Well, what can I do to, well, just stop being lazy is essentially the
Right.
question. Just put the underwear down the laundry chute. But
Right.
you asked the question about, is this a good book to give to somebody who is struggling with these issues of not taking personal responsibility or blaming other people or constantly complaining about their coworkers? I read a book when I was coaching called The Score Will Take Care of Itself by Bill Walsh. Bill Walsh. So Bill Walsh took over the 1979 took over the 49ers as an organization. They were 2-14 when he took them over. Over the course of 2 seasons, they became Super Bowl champions, and then they
Mm-hmm.
won 3 out of the 5 Super Bowl championships thereafter. What did he do? He changed the systems within the
Systems change.
49ers organization. So he
Mm-hmm.
made the players wear ties on game day, suits and tie on game day. He required that the players show up on time. If they didn't show up on time, they were fined heavily. They had to eat certain foods that the team provided for lunch and dinner. The coaching staff had to have a detailed practice plan of what they were doing, what every single player was going to be doing, minute by minute of what they were going to be doing. And so these are these small things that he changed within the 49ers organization that eventually created this success 2 or 3 seasons down the road. So just to echo what you've already been saying, I think if you are going to be a great leader, you got to obviously take responsibility, but I think you're right, 100%. You have to have a system or you have to have a philosophy or an environment that people want to buy into so that they will follow what you have to say. And I think the complete opposite of this would be like an organization like Enron, who was covering up things, was doing shady things underneath the radar. They were paying top management so much money, but then they
I wonder if he
were.
presented there. You
I
think
have
maybe he
no.
presented at Enron?
Maybe that's why they crashed. I don't know, but
Well, I mean, it's a good point because if this is a good book for a company like Enron to be like, shut up and do your work, stop asking why and start asking how. How can you best serve us as the leaders who, in the end, everybody finds out, are covering everything up? So again, from that perspective, this can be a really bad book. From that perspective,
right, yeah.
just in your example.
So I don't know when this book was written. When is the copyright in that book? And while you look, um, leadership has changed over the years. Where leadership has changed from do what I say to now more of a modern take on leadership is what can we do together to accomplish our goal? And
Yes,
you kind of
yes.
even see this in parenting over the generations. where you talk about the baby boomers where they were told, you follow me, you do this, or you're going to suffer the consequence.
Right.
And there's a hard consequence for not obeying me. Now, modern parenting is, hey, we are not friends, we are not on the same level, but I'm going to help you, and we're going to be arm in arm as we walk through this life together to accomplish what you want and to make you life ready. Like, so I think that whenever he wrote this book, I do, whether it's probably in the 90s or whenever he probably wrote it, I think that the leadership focus and the leadership mentality has changed over the decades to more of a me versus you to a us mentality. I don't know
Right.
what your thoughts are on that. And I don't even know when the book was written, but
No, I
um,
agree. I think that he self-published it in 1995. The copyright on this book is 2001. But if I
okay.
remember right, his self-publication was in 1995, which is right in the midst of that baby boomers are the leading managers in a lot of these big companies type of era. So that's when the shift was starting to occur. Now, granted, what you said is 100% right. We can also go too far the other way. So the
Mm-hmm.
parent, for example, can be like, I am your friend. In fact, I'm going to encourage you to do things that are unhealthy, like smoke weed when you're 14 years old. Because I didn't get the chance to do that because my parents were hard butts and they told me that I couldn't and I would die the moment that weed touched my lips. So you're 14. In fact, I'm going to buy it for you and give it to you
We're gonna
because
smoke it
I'm your
together.
friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
My
or
mind
you,
my mind goes back to the you talked about in episode like episode 3 how you have an acquaintance that knows their kid's like 14 years old and they know and
oh,
allow
yeah,
their 14-year-old son to watch porn. Like
right.
that's like no matter what philosophy you have of life, that's never
This is
happening
pretty
in
messed up.
my household. That's just not
Yeah, yeah,
happening. But
yeah.
but I think that is a shift in. I think there's just been a shift in leadership, modern leadership. Not to say that you're right, not to say that it's right, but I do
I
think
think
that
it's
this
more
book.
right. I think it's
Okay.
more right than what it
Yep.
was in 95.
Yep. I agree.
I mean, top down management, you do what I say, is not the appropriate approach because people who are actually doing the work, they see the front line every day, they have great feedback. And granted, sure, some of it may be complaining and griping and whatever, but in reality, some of it could be great feedback. And you saying, shut up and do your work, stop asking why, start asking how, you can make me more money, that's not the right approach because we can learn from the people who are showing up late. Okay, so let's say that we have a young man who all throughout his life he never took a class in college before 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock. He never, whatever. He's always used to getting up at 8 a.m. every morning, and that's been his life. And then all of a sudden, he enters the workforce. He's required to be at work at 8 a.m., and he has 23 years of waking up at 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. every morning. And that's what he's used to. And all of a sudden, he has to wake up 2 or 3 hours earlier than that to show up to work. Is there any way, rather than me saying, no, you have to be here at 8 a.m., sorry. And maybe that is the answer. Maybe him having to be there at 8 is what he has to do. He has to chalk it up. Or maybe he does a great job and maybe I can adjust his hours, which again is what we're seeing in today's economy and in today's world. Well, let's adjust your hour. You can be here at 10, but you have to stay till 7. I mean, that's just the reality of it. And he can do all of his work between that time period rather than having one model and one system and forcing everybody to stay in that exact model and exact system. And I think you're seeing that in corporate America today, where if you have somebody who needs a little flexibility, as long as it's for a valid and just reason, and it's not just because you're lazy, well, then fine, we can make those adjustments in order to allow you to be successful within our system. I think the hard butts out there who are not willing to flex with the current generation, for example. And I'm not saying that the current generation, everybody wants to show up work at 10 and nobody wants to work. And I'm not saying any of that. But I'm saying those who are like, you have to be here at 7 a.m. on the dot. You get a 30-minute lunch. That's not 30 minutes and 1 seconds, people. That is 30 minutes. 30 minutes. You will eat a sandwich. You will sit there. You will not complain about your coworkers. You will not have mayonnaise on your sandwich because it is unhealthy for you. You will have butter on all of your sandwiches. You will eat it, and you will clock back in 30 minutes after you clock out, not 1 second more. Well, people who say that, like, that's an issue with. I think that would have been an issue back in the 70s, but it's what people did back then. But now people are a little more willing. So I think that management, again, and bosses can take this book and can run with it from that perspective, which is the reason why I don't think this is a good book to recommend. Even if somebody has issues with procrastination or laziness or whatever it may be, there are other books that can do a better job of that. I would definitely not recommend QBQ from that perspective.
I mean, could
It
you
was a good read.
imagine? Could you imagine in the 90s saying, "Yeah, you want to work from home 1 day a week, or you want to work from home 2 days a week? Yeah, be my
Heck
guest.
no.
Come to the office like 3 days a week. You keep your camera off on Zoom calls. Come, stay at home for 2 days." I think it's funny. This reminds me of there's like a reel out there that shows baby boomers getting ready for work. So they come to the breakfast table in their suit and ties, ready for work, and they have their hair slicked over. And then you have Generation X. They come to the breakfast table with slacks and a nice polo shirt. And then you have the millennials. They're coming to the breakfast table ready to work in t-shirt and shorts. And then the next generation, which would be, I think, Generation Z, they're coming to the breakfast table ready to get to work in a hoodie and their slippers. And then like the modern day, like 18-year-olds, like they're not even getting out of bed. They're just turning on their computer because they're all working from home. Like there is a shift, I think, in the corporate world on what is expected. Is it like which generation is right? Of course, we always think that our generation is doing things the best way. But you do see that shift from what happened from the baby boomers always wearing a tie to work to now it's acceptable to wear a hoodie to work. Like that's just a progression of, I guess, corporate America. I view that hoodie would be wrong and it's inappropriate for most situations at work, but that's the shift you're seeing in modern leadership in modern corporate America. So I think it's relevant to see when this book was written to kind of glean from like what was the mentality during that day and age.
That's a good point. Yeah.
How do we see the world? Through what lens do we see the world today? And if we were to revise the question behind the question, how would that be revised through the lens of modern day leadership? So
I want to end off with this one in chapter 33. He makes the statement, leaders are not problem solvers. Do you remember reading that? I read that and I was like, what the heck?
So he also said the wrong thing to do is to think outside the box. We need to find
be creative inside the box.
Like, yes. What is this? What? Like you're just trying to have catchphrases, my friend, to be relevant. So I don't agree with that because sorry to interrupt, but I think you're making your point. You're making your point.
No, I mean, I think that encompasses and boils everything down perfectly. Is he's trying to fit everybody inside this box. If you don't fit in the box, you need to stop asking why, stop complaining about the new program that's outside the box that we could buy that would make it cheaper for us to run these services that we're serving. Stop complaining. Use this old clunky program from 1976 that hasn't been updated in 12 years. Learn how to use that program within the box rather than looking at opportunities outside the box. That perspective is exactly how I feel. It's like, dude, how disconnected are you to suggest that we have to stay in the box to be successful? In fact, that shows how disconnected you are with reality, and that there are way too many people who feel like they need the box, those walls in the box, in order to make them feel safe. No, help them break down the walls, help them solve the problem of, okay, if we push this wall out to the left, there's a product over here that we can use, or a service, or a way of interacting with our coworkers that will help us be massively successful. That's what a leader does. As leader looks at everybody in his team and says, how can I help them work together? John, who is, born in 1955, he has his very set way of doing things. He is an extremely valuable employee. Not saying that at all. Very valuable. But he has a very set way of doing things. How can I, as leader, ask the questions to get John to work with Nancy, who just graduated from NC State University at 23 years old and shows up in a hoodie to work, while John's sitting next to her in his cubicle in a suit? Like, how can I get those two thought paths to cross in an effective way? And while we know, in general, this is generalizing, that John is going to say, you need to show up on time, you need to do this, and this is the way we've always done it, Nancy's going to have new ideas that are out there. And to be honest with you, a lot of Nancy's ideas are completely stupid. But there are several gems that are within there, and at least she's reaching outside of the box. We need to look at all of those stupid questions that John just wants to dismiss, all of them, find the gems, the 1 out of 10 that's an actual gem, use it to make this company successful. So rather than forcing Nancy to say, shut up and ask how, stop asking why, we need to encourage Nancy to continue down her path of growth. We need to encourage John to stop staying in the box and to think a little bit outside of that, so that we can actually grow as a company and not die like so many companies have over the years. And that's kind of how I want to end it.
Yeah.
Did you have any final closing thoughts?
No, the only thing I would just add to that is to be your scope of influence and your scope of power, going back to Robert Greene's 40 Laws of Power, is to be all things to all people. And how can you relate to all people? How can you serve all people? How can you encourage? How can you motivate all people? So yeah, it's interesting though. I'm glad we read this book because, again, it spurs conversation, it spurs thought, and it is what it is. I'm looking forward to our next book.
Yeah, no, definitely. So the next book is going to be The Laws of Human Nature. I did not read it at all this week. I finished my fiction book. Well, we have 3 weeks before we're going to record.
Yes.
So, I mean, we have plenty of time. I'm on page 350 or something like that. So I have 150 pages left. So I won't have any problems. And I'm going to go back through it. I have written down a lot. So that'll be an interesting conversation. I'm curious about getting your perspective. But we will record The Laws of Human Nature by Robert Greene in 3 weeks. After that, we've talked about reading The Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey. We may do an Audible, decide to change that up. We'll see. We've been talking about wanting to read a book on AI at the same time.
That's
that
true
I
too, yeah.
But then it's like, well, maybe it is a good idea because Brian's just been in a bad mood the past couple of days. So anyway, my apologies for being in a bad mood the past couple of days.
No worries.
Sure.
It's all good.
But until the next episode.
All right, man. Thank you.